Hi, and welcome back to the Jack and Bekah podcast. I'm Jack.
And I'm Bekah.
And today, joining us is Mr. Shannon and Mr. Sullivan. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having us.
So, for those of you who don't know, we've had Mr. Shannon already previously on the podcast, but we have not had Mr. Sullivan yet. So we're super excited to have you on and ask you some questions.
It's great. Me too.
But first, I want to get to know you a little bit more, because we work with Mr. Shannon every day, but we want to get to know you a little bit more.
Okay.
We already asked Mr. Shannon this question, so we know his answer. But when did you graduate high school?
And you answered this?
1983.
Oh,
Correct.
I graduated in 1990.
1990. Awesome.
In high school, were you part of any drama programs? What shows were you in and stuff?
Okay, so when I was in high school, our drama club was called the Take Two Players, which I was never fond of because take two means that you made a mistake the first time. But anyway, I'm over it. So yeah, and we did in high school, our productions were Camelot, Pirates of Penzance. Junior year we did Grease. And our senior year we did a play called The Skin of Our Teeth by Thornton Wilder. And I was the student director of that.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was also in the music program in school, the show choir and the concert choir, and it was a lot of fun. And really shaped the future interest in the arts.
And it's very likely that Mr. Sullivan was a student in the show choir when I was bringing an Abington group to festivals as a teacher.
Wow.
How did you both meet? When did you guys meet and stuff?
We met in the summer of 1995. Doing a production of West Side Story at the Company Theater in Norwell. We were both Jets in West Side Story.
West Side Story, that was our first meeting, yeah.
Yeah, and we had a great summer.
Great summer, and we've
fun.
done a lot of shows together since at Company Theater and other theaters as well.
And we've directed together. Steve has directed me, I've directed him, we've produced stuff together. So there's a lot on our resume together. Yeah.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Mr. Shannon, you describe yourself as an actor who sings and dances, not a dancer and singer who acts, correct?
That is correct.
How would you describe yourself in that,
As a performer?
yeah, more of a singer,
Primarily an actor.
an actor?
More of a character actor. I love playing villains and comedic roles.
Yeah.
I'm not really a leading man, romantic type. But I first act. I used to be a great dancer back in the day. I took a lot of dance in college, and but now I'm an actor who moves well and can carry a tune. And that's why I'm great in a character part, because I can sell the number without having to be exactly correct in what I'm singing. But as long as I have the heart behind it and can sell the performance, then I can pull it off.
So obviously you've continued with this. Where do you draw your inspiration to continue this? Because obviously you've been doing this for a while now.
It's what I do. It's my calling in life. Is theater and performing. I believe that the arts are important in our world because they're the mirror that we hold up for people to look at, and we can get a bunch of people in a room together live, and subliminally through comedy or romance or drama send them a message that they walk out with. Then I've done my job as an artist. And so I think that's what why I keep performing and directing. But really my number one passion is working in youth programs with young people.
Awesome.
What would you say is the hardest part? Both of you, you've directed for so long. What would you say is the hardest thing about directing and putting on a show?
Well, for me, it's just a lot of preparation and work. And traditionally, as being the person who sort of is in charge of the whole theater program here in Abington at the high school level, for so many years directing and prepping all the vocal work, it's just a lot of work. And so I was thrilled to be able to bring Mr. Sullivan on board to direct this, because it takes that big chunk of that off my plate. I've directed so many shows, but probably my forte is music direction over stage direction. So it's nice to sort of fall back into that role for myself. But I think it's the preparation piece. So it's nice to move that to your plate.
For me, I would say the most challenging thing as a director is working with people who don't fully realize their full potential yet. They have the sort of hunger to do what they love and what they're passionate about, but yet they don't really quite have the permission yet, even from their self, to go fully out in front of other people, or even delve in right away in the rehearsal space. Even with some adult performers that I've worked with, having that sort of block, that's sort of the coldness you have to remove in the first few rehearsals. Once you get over that hurdle, which I think is the most trickiest, is people being self-conscious and self-editing. Once you get over that hurdle, then you really can take the ball and run with it and start a creative process where everyone's giving together and you get that full collaborative experience.
One of the reasons it was important for me to bring Mr. Sullivan in is I knew his passion for working in theater education and working with young actors and technicians and people to come in and do that. And now, not everybody has that skill set. There are actors and performers and there are directors, but not everybody necessarily gets what youth theater and theater for young artists is about, and I know he gets it.
Thank you. That's nice.
So obviously you work very well together because you keep doing it. So currently working on Carrie the musical. What are your roles in each of that, for those who don't know?
So I am the advisor to the program and have been for a billion years. And in this particular show, I'm also serving as the music director. So I'm prepping the vocal work and the singing, and then I'll be playing and conducting the pit orchestra for this.
And I am the stage director, which means that I had a hand in casting the roles with Mr. Shannon and listening in on music rehearsals. My job is to be the objective eye as we develop things on the stage as the audience members. So can everybody see everything? Is everything reading? Is the intention coming through? Is the message clear? Are my actors getting it? And working with the choreographer on musical staging so that the story is told and that message is received to the audience. And also to make sure that everyone involved is having a good time. I think that's a big part of our job with this show.
Yeah. We're super excited for Carrie. Bekah is Carrie.
Yes, she is.
We all have a hand in putting this together, so we're super excited. What previously have you guys worked on together?
So we mentioned West Side Story in '95, and then the following spring, we had done a production of the Who's Tommy together, and we had done that. Our most recent venture together was at the Norwood Theater. We were both in Mamma Mia as two of the three potential dads of Sophie. So that was a lot of fun to work together as adults, so. But I'm sure there's been a bunch of stuff in between.
What things have you directed together?
The first one that comes to mind is a production of Pippin that we put on in a 102 degree. It was so hot that summer in this a church hall that was. It was actually a vaudeville theater that was built back in the 1800s. But anyway, I was just starting out a local theater company and brought Steve on to musically direct, and we did this production, and we had no money to put it on, no production value, but it had so much heart. And I think that we just poured our souls into just making sure it happened.
Right.
And I'm still hearing from some of the actors who were in it today who said, "Oh my gosh, do you remember that summer and how great that was?" So that one's really special to me because that stands out because we really took nothing and made something. We made a full show, and it was actually pretty good.
Yeah, and we had a bunch of our friends, our theater friends, who I think that even made us all closer and stronger, better friends as a result of working together on that. Even if we didn't know each other well at the beginning, a lot of us, but by the end, we were pretty tight. And as you both know from being in the theater program, that's part of the process too, right? Is that as you go through that, you really develop these bonds with people and your friends, and those hopefully are lifelong friends and bonds that you make. So Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, I feel like Abington as a community describes themselves as like a tight-knit community. Well, what would you say the difference is when working with Abington and Abington students in theater specifically?
The difference between Abington and
Other productions you may have done.
Well, so my perspective is coming in, and through a theater program of a high school. So this, for some of the students, is an introduction to theater, whereas some of the places that we've worked with professional actors in professional settings with tons of resources and a great full-on production team. Here we're still introducing some students to theater. We have other students who have a lot of experience, some are sort of in between. And you're also sort of working within sort of the confines of a school system, so making sure that everything's done appropriately and respectfully within the context of what's an educational opportunity for the young people to experience. So there's a lot of different factors when comparing the many different types of productions that you're involved in. But what I love about working at Abington is just the enthusiasm of the students and just really wanting to be in the show and have a great show. And what I've witnessed so far is a lot of care for each other too. We have some students, I believe, who have never even done a show before here at Abington, who are now, I'm watching relationships develop, where you have students who are typically involved in athletics now blending in with students who have been strictly theater, and then you've got the students in between who do a bit of both. It's wonderful to see how that blend of different personalities and people are coming together for the show.
I would just add too, because we both worked in sort of like conservatory type programs or performing arts schools or tuition-based programs where these kids are coming in really focused on a product as much as the process, and as Mr. Sullivan said, it's about, they've got a lot of resources and things like that. So it's just really nice to come in and see the discovery that kids, especially those who are new to the program, are finding that it's new and exciting, and it's sort of, they're sort of discovering that, and that's exciting.
You guys were talking about how like Abington is like a good cast to work with. Have you ever worked with a cast that isn't good to work with? Like, how did you like overcome that?
Well, I mean, there are challenges with every cast because it is personalities and like different people. So I think part of the role of the production staff, though, is to sort of help navigate some of those things in any scenario, whether it's here or other places. But sometimes, especially in community theater, you can come across, people with some ego or some, attitude. But like community theater too, I mean, people are coming in after a full week of work and long days and things like that. And so, you just, again, you do your best and hope everyone puts on their professional shoes and, does it for the right reasons. But, you come across those occasionally.
What do you guys think the most challenging aspect of theater is?
For me right now, and I don't know if it's like a post-pandemic thing, I think it's just re-engaging audiences. I think I feel a sense of audiences wanting things that are light and entertaining. They want the feel-good stuff, and I'm afraid that we're gonna fall into this trap of only, sort of placating those that need or want, when there's so much other rich material out there that, as such as Carrie and a lockdown that we did last year that sort of tackles some of these heavier issues. I mean, the theme for Carrie is it's about somebody who's bullied, right? And the theme that runs throughout, though, is what does it cost to be kind, right? What does it cost to be kind? And I think that's such a strong message that, in a show like Carrie, does sort of get lost in some of what people expect in terms of the blood and the this and the that. But the message is there, and it's just told through a different way. And it's not necessarily like the tap your toes sort of musical that some people might expect, but it's important nonetheless. That's my take.
Yeah, especially in Abington, I think when this is like a learning program, I think it's so important that we do different types of material, and it's not all the same, as you said, happy, feel-good stuff. Because I feel like even when I participated in lockdown, I learned and grew so much that I was not expecting. Because even before that, I had done very the lighthearted musicals and stuff like that. And they're awesome, but you only learn so much from doing the same thing. And I think it's super important that we're branching out and doing these different titles that a lot of non-theater students may have never heard of, which I think is really cool.
And I think different titles bring different students in. I think this particular title brought in a whole different group of students who may not have shown up for like a Beauty and the Beast or something of that nature. And if we're doing our jobs right, we're also alternating those types of shows and we're not excluding them, but we're also not neglecting the other stuff that's there.
Yeah, I also feel like some people like are intrigued by the fact that it's like horror themed, because like you don't really see that a lot. Like usually when I tell people that we're doing Carrie, they're like, "That's a musical," like, and they're just like confused. And so it's like good to like change things up.
Yeah. So you guys are both directing, music directing and stage directing. What is your favorite, most rewarding part of directing, besides like the finished product show?
I think I sort of answered that earlier, but for me, it's just the discovery and watching the kids grow and anybody I'm working with. But I don't know if you had a chance.
Oh, exactly. I agree 110%. That just particularly with the students who come in a little shy and leave with new friends and a new confidence and a new sense of self from being part of something that they've worked on together with another group of their students. To see that, that's a big reward.
I feel like this show in particular, I've seen a lot of friendships made that I've seen in other shows, but I think just like the cast and the community around this one is really good. There's a group chat and people are active in the group chat, and it's just been, I think it's been really good. And I think people who would not have ever spoken to each other are now talking to each other. They're seeing each other in the halls. And I think it's really cool. I think freshmen are talking to seniors, which does not happen. And I know my freshman year in this program specifically, I was super nervous to talk to seniors. But like I've noticed the seniors specifically and like juniors bridging that gap between upperclassmen and lowerclassmen.
Awesome.
Which I think is really good to see.
That's great to hear, because I mean, it's particularly with a show where you have sensitive type material, where there are things that are going to hit home with people on issues that we've all experienced. You have to have that support for each other, and you've got to be there for each other so that you can tell the story responsibly and also in a way where the actors feel like they can fully give what they have to offer their roles in a safe and beneficial way for the story to be told.
Yeah, you talk about being like sensitive material. What would you say to an audience member who might be coming to the show? What should they expect? How should they prepare themselves?
Good question. It does have mature themes and some strong language, so those are things that I would advise people just to be thoughtful about, depending on if that's something that either they might not be comfortable with, or certainly not younger children. I think what we're doing is no different than what you might see on TV and what people are streaming and watching on their own personal devices, so that's a challenge. But like Mr. Sullivan said, it's like our job to do it responsibly, right? And to do it in a way that is part of that storytelling, and it's not gratuitous, and it's not intended to be shock. It's not for shock value, but it's the way the story is and the way the story is told, and our job is to honor that material. So.
Yeah, I'd say though too that there is some inferred violence in the show, and there is horror, and there is blood, and so if you are familiar with the Stephen King story, you will be familiar with what we're doing. But part of my job as the director is to make choices with how far we actually go with that. Number one, knowing the type of audience that we will have. Number two, knowing the type of situation that we're presenting the show in. So there are different aspects of the show that people would maybe see in a different production that I'm sort of sitting there as I'm planning out the directing, saying, do we need to actually take this little piece that far in order to get the message across of what does it cost to be kind? And so I have pulled back on some of that stuff, knowing that there will be a mixed audience. There may be younger brothers or sisters in the audience. But I would just basically say to parents, this is probably more of a PG-13 type show, and there may be some themes in it that might promote some discussions at home.
And just touching back to Becca's previous question about like that's a musical, I think what people will be pleasantly surprised at is how good the music is. And the music is so compelling in the show. But it's not a well-known musical. It's not one that the general public would be very familiar with. I think they're really going to be pleased with the music and the whole vibe of the show. In addition to all of that stuff, but I think hopefully they'll walk out and go, wow, I really liked that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised, that they're pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
So what would you say the best part about like Carrie is?
For me, I love Margaret the Mother's songs. They just, for some reason, just resonate with me. I think it's a great role. It's a great story. The relationship between her and Carrie is so complex. They're both two very complex characters. But I just think the music for Margaret just gets me every time. That's my thing.
Oh, yeah, it's great. I love the music. And it almost has this sort of like dramatic opera feel to it. But what I'd say is that audience members, when they sit back and they watch the show, they can find so many different connections with the many spectrum of characters. There have been times in my life I've been a bully. There have been times that I have been bullied. There have been times that I've been the bystander. There have been times that I've tried to be the peacemaker and make everything work. So there's a whole spectrum of characters that people can connect with at different points of the show, and that can be a different person at different points of the show. So overall, the message of it, just that question that you really leave with. And I think right now, with so many things going on in the outside world, to step back and ask ourselves that question, what does it cost to be kind to someone? Just to be kind. You don't have to agree. You don't have to promote their life or subscribe to what they're saying, but you can be kind and respectful so that we can have dialogue about things rather than having fights about things. So I think that message is my favorite part.
Yeah. I agree. I think the theme and message in the show is just awesome. But when can audience members come and watch the show, and where can they buy tickets?
So we are running March 9th, 10th, and 11th here at the Abington Middle School High School Auditorium. Our Thursday and Friday shows are at 7:30, and our Saturday matinees at 2 o'clock. We have tickets available online. We'll be getting some publicity information out within the next week or so. And that will have a website where people can pre-order their tickets and pick their seats online, which is very convenient, so we'd encourage you to do that. Tickets are always available at the door as well. A lot of times people think, oh, I can only get my tickets online. We have a 750-seat auditorium, so we've never had to, since we've been in this new building, we've never had to turn anyone away at the door. So there's always tickets available at the door as well.
Awesome. Do you have any final thoughts or questions for us?
I just know that we took a little bit of a gamble and risk choosing Carrie as our musical this year. I'm super pleased that the students and the production staff and the creative team that we have on this are just came out for it, and that I think it's going to be a really special show.
Yeah, and I would just encourage people out in the community to come out, not just to support the program, but just to have an amazing night of theater. They're going to be fully entertained. They're going to see things that they've never seen on a high school stage before. And they're going to be wowed, and it's going to be an amazing, amazing production. So I would encourage people to come see it. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon and Mr. Sullivan, for being here, and thank you guys for watching. Come and watch Carrie, 9th, 10th, and 11th of March, and subscribe to Abington Cam. Bye.